heart was behind our county becoming a sanctuary for the Second Amendment. I'm selling these shirts now for a donation of $20. Your $20 in its entirety will be turned over to Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated. I'm outside.
Well, since everybody's quiet, we might as well go ahead and get started. Grab the doors. Okay, as we normally do, we do the pledge and then prayer. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty God, our rock and our salvation, we beg you to pour out your Holy Spirit upon our fractured nation. Heal the divisions that separate us and remove all obstacles to authentic unity. May you guide this great country of ours and lead our citizens to embrace one another as neighbors and fellow countrymen, created in your own image and likeness. Give us a fresh opportunity for renewal and true solidarity for the common good of our homeland. May we return to our true identity as a people of faith and charity. Help us to always remain one nation under you, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Amen.
Okay, I'd like to recognize any first-time visitors or people that have come back. Do we have any today? I know I've seen some faces I haven't seen in a while, but I appreciate you coming back. We have had quite an experience with all the COVID-19 episodes. I want to thank everybody for coming. This is one of the bigger meetings we've had for the after the COVID-19. We're trying to do social distancing as much as we can, and we'll keep you informed of all the things that are going on in the county. I'd like to introduce Legend, who is our Senator-elect, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Haggerty?
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me. I'm the Deputy Field Director for Ambassador Haggerty's campaign for United States Senator. I'm 22 years old. I played football at the University of Colorado. And,
We won't hold that against you.
no, sir. And, well, my dad is the defensive coordinator at Tennessee, so go Vols. And,
Good call.
and I just, my boss, Riley Lovingood, he says he's been to a couple of these meetings, and he said it was very informative that I come to these meetings, that you guys are great people, and he learns a lot. So I'm excited to learn a lot from you guys, and I wanted to let you know that I got started and interested in politics in 2018 during the Brett Kavanaugh situation. I saw they were trying to destroy a great man with a perfect background, almost no badness done by him, and they were sitting there and calling him all these names with no evidence, and it just made me really open my eyes that the Democrats will do anything for power. And so ever since then, I've been Big Red. I love our great country, I love our president, and I'm excited to be with you guys here tonight, and thank you guys for having me.
Okay, we do have a Senator-elect, maybe, Haggerty. He was the ambassador. He also has said that he's going to be backing Trump 100%, and so we're going to hold him to that. And with that, we want to talk about election, and we'll do our history class right now.
It's always a little bit of history, always a little bit of Constitution. So
What I want to talk about today is, everybody knows that Kamala Harris was picked by Biden last week to be his vice presidential running mate. And Trump and others immediately raised the question whether or not she's eligible to be the vice president / president. And of course, the liberal media and the left, just immediately poo-pooed it, said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Of course she's eligible." And they even called him a racist for even raising the question. And they say, "Well, she was born in Oakland, California. Of course she's eligible to be president," as if that settles the matter. So, as always, there's more to the story. So let's dig into what the Constitution actually says about eligibility for the president. First, the 12th Amendment says that no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. And that's obviously very clear. In other words, if you're not eligible to be president, you're not eligible to be vice president. So that's very clear. A little background on the 12th Amendment. If you've read the Constitution at all, it's a very interesting story because the original Constitution had the winner of the Electoral College being president and the runner-up being vice president. Well, the contentious election of 1796 between Adams and Jefferson ended up with Adams being president, Jefferson, his rival, being the vice president. And the founders realized real quickly this isn't going to work. So in 1804, I believe, they passed the 12th Amendment to kind of redo the way vice presidents were elected. So anyway, that's the background on that. Now, what about citizenship requirements to be president? So you have to be eligible to be president. What does it mean to be eligible? Article 2 of the Constitution specifies that no person except a natural-born citizen shall be eligible to the office of president. So number one, you have to be a natural-born citizen to be eligible for president and therefore also vice president. First, a little background on that. Why would the founders put that requirement in the Constitution, that the president be a natural-born citizen? Any ideas?
They don't want a foreigner as
Exactly. They don't want someone who has their allegiance to another country to be president. And of course, in Europe, that happened a lot, where the Prince of Spain married someone from Germany or whatever, and so there's divided allegiances, and they saw all the problems with that. But also, where did they get the wisdom for thinking about that? Any ideas? From the Bible, of course, okay? If you know me, you know I'm going to reference the Bible as well. Deuteronomy 17:15 says, and this was when Moses was in the desert and he was relating to the Israelites what was going to happen. He was prophesying what's going to happen to you when you go into the Promised Land. And after a while, you're going to get tired of God being your king, and you're going to want a king like all the other people. So this is what he says. He says, "You may indeed set a king over you, whom the Lord your God will choose. One from among your brothers you shall set as king over you. You may not put a foreigner over you who is not your brother." Okay, obviously very good advice that the founders took to heart. And really, if you think about the way that phrase was written in the Constitution, it's almost word for word from the Bible. All right, so now back to Kamala Harris here. Her father was and is a Jamaican national. Her mother was from India, and neither one of them was a naturalized U.S. citizen at the time of Harris's birth in 1964. But she was born in Oakland, California, so does that make her a natural-born citizen?
No.
Well, contrary to what the media said, yeah, that's not part of the country. That's a good point. The communist state of California. That's right. The People's Republic of California, right? I was just out there a couple of months ago, and it's crazy. But contrary to what the media says, that's a very important question.
So what does the Constitution say about citizenship? How do they define citizenship? Well, the original Constitution does not say anything, does not give a definition of citizenship or what a natural born citizen is, but the 14th Amendment does. Okay, and that's what everybody points to, say, okay, this is, but both the left and the right point to and say, this is proof positive one way or the other. So, what does the 14th Amendment say? Well, in Section 1 it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States and the states wherein they reside. Was that what it says? No. Actually, that's what it says, but I skipped something. Okay? And this is what the left, the media, always leaves out. What it actually says is all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state where they reside. So in other words, there's a qualifier there. You have to be under the jurisdiction thereof, under the jurisdiction of the United States. All right, so that's a very important phrase that qualifies citizenship for anybody born here. So what does that phrase mean? Under the jurisdiction thereof. Again, to understand, we've got to go back to the intent of those who proposed the 14th Amendment and those who ratified the 14th Amendment. And actually, the view of the authors of the 14th Amendment on the citizenship clause was that it meant subject to the complete jurisdiction, not merely a partial jurisdiction, such as what applies to anybody temporarily sojourning here in the United States, whether lawfully or unlawfully. In other words, obviously, anybody that's in the United States, you break a law, you can be arrested, so you're subject to that jurisdiction in that respect. But in the full, complete respect, is they're still subject to whatever country they're from. If an ambassador from Germany is here in the United States with his family, and he has a baby that's born in the United States, nobody from the founding era would consider that person, that new baby, a citizen of the United States, because they're under complete jurisdiction of Germany, because that's where their affiliation is. Well, the same goes to whether you're here temporary or illegally or whatever, you're subject to the jurisdiction of your home country and not to the United States. So that is what they meant. Okay, why can I say that? It doesn't say that clearly. Well, again, you go back to what they said when they wrote this amendment. Of course, everybody knows that the 14th Amendment was all about making sure slaves were citizens, former slaves were citizens. That was the main point. But they had to define it some way, and that's the way they did it. So, that amendment overturned that idea, also overturned the Dred Scott decision to call slaves property, etc., etc. So we all know that was the main purpose behind the 14th Amendment. But what about the birthright citizenship part? Now, again, the left claims today that, well, anybody, if you're born on U.S. soil, it doesn't matter why you're here or who your parents are, you're a citizen, natural-born citizen. Well, is that what they intended? No, because that ignores the clear text in the history of the 14th Amendment, which, by the way, was ratified in 1868. Of course, the left says, well, if you're here, you're under jurisdiction. No, that doesn't count. Before the 14th Amendment, citizenship was actually granted by the states, and the federal government subsequently recognized it. When the 14th Amendment was enacted, there was very few laws about immigration, and so there really was no such thing as illegal immigrants that came in. But there's simply no direct evidence that Congress wished to confer citizenship on the children of temporary or illegal visitors. But there's a lot of evidence that says they did not. The amendment's language was derived from an 1866 Civil Rights Act, which provided, and I quote, all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power. Okay, so that's kind of the same thing, different wording. They would be considered citizens. Senator Lyman Trumbull, who was a key figure in the adoption of the 14th Amendment, said that subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. included not owing allegiance to any other country. again, if you're here for whatever reason, you still have allegiance to your former country. Now, there have been about 3 cases that dealt with this, and only 3, not too many. In 1872, the Supreme Court stated that this qualifying phrase was intended to exclude children of ministers, consuls, and citizens or subjects of foreign states born in the United States. So again, that's pretty clear. So if you're here, you're not a permanent legal resident, then you're not a citizen. This was confirmed in 1884 in another case called Elk versus Wilkins, when citizenship was denied to an American Indian because he owed allegiance to his tribe and not to the United States. Okay, American Indians and their children did not become citizens until Congress passed the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. So why would they have to pass an act like that if they intended that everybody just born on American soil was a citizen? Obviously, it doesn't make sense at all. The left also claims that the case was settled in 1898 in the case of U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark. And again, first of all, I'll say the Supreme Court is not the final authority, and they're not supposed to make laws. But even if they did, the court case only held that a child born of lawful permanent residence was a U.S. citizen. So what happened is there was a Chinese couple that became a lawful permanent resident. They were permanent residents, I believe, in California, and their son, had a son, and he wanted citizenship. And so the court finally said, okay, this is kind of contentious, but yeah, we'll grant you citizenship because both your parents are lawful residents here. And in other words, they've kind of given up their allegiance to their home country of China. I personally believe that the court's interpretation of the 14th Amendment really was incorrect in that case, but even if it was, again, that still does not confer citizenship to anybody that's here that's not a permanent legal resident. And what's the practical history of the issue since these cases? Well, the children born on U.S. soil to guest workers from Mexico during the Roaring '20s, I guess there was a need for a bunch of workers. A bunch of workers came in. They were not viewed as citizens because in the wake of the Great Depression, when they shipped them all home, none of them were considered citizens at all, even though they had some people that were born in the United States. Nor were their children born on U.S. soil to guest workers in the Bradshaw program, and I'm not sure what that was, but it was in the 1950s and 60s. They weren't deemed citizens either, and when the program ended, their families were, again, immigrated back to their home land, wherever it was, and their children were not considered citizens. So it's just plain wrong to claim that children born on parents temporarily in the United States on student visas or here illegally or, for whatever reason are automatically U.S. citizens. They do not meet the 14th Amendment's jurisdictional allegiance obligations. They are, in fact, subject to the political jurisdiction of the country their families came from. So you may be thinking, well, if there's no reason to give birthright citizenship, why are we doing it? What's changed? Well, obviously it's changed over the years because the mentality in America today, if you ask anybody, well, if you're born in America, it doesn't matter whether you're illegal or whatever, you're a citizen of the United States. I mean, that's just the way it is. Anybody ever heard different? I mean, that's the claim. So how did that come about? Well, federal law doesn't give an answer because if you look at the U.S. immigration law, and I could state the number, but I won't, it just simply repeats the language of the 14th Amendment, including the phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So what happened was actually in the late 1960s, the State Department decided on their own, this is an unelected bureaucracy of the State Department, decided on their own, we're going to start giving U.S. passports and citizenship to anybody born on U.S. soil regardless, period. Okay? And that was done not by law, not because the Constitution says so, but just some bureaucrats who had taken over, you know, the liberals that had taken over the State Department started doing that. And of course, that hasn't been challenged for the last 50 years. I mean, no one's thrown the red flag and said, whoa, time out. Trump talked about it a little bit last summer, and you know, he just got blown out of the water as soon as he mentioned it. I mean, it's a sacred cow to the left. So, what we need to do, obviously, I think we need to start challenging that from the right. But in order to understand if Senator Harris is really eligible or not, you have to ask some questions about her parents. Were her parents lawful permanent residents at the time of her birth? If the answer is yes, well, then okay, she's a natural born citizen according to that one case. Even though I disagree with that, it's not going to make any difference. So she would be considered that. But if not, which seems to be the case, because it seems that both her parents were on student visas at the time. They met at, was it Stanford? I forget. Whatever college they were both at. And by the way, they were both radical leftists, Marxists, you know, doing that stuff at the time. So if they weren't permanent legal residents at the time, then Kamala Harris was not a citizen at the time. She would not be, or she may not even be a citizen now. Again, that's hard to justify because she's got a passport and everybody says she is. But she wouldn't be a natural-born citizen at any rate. Interestingly, you know, that would even come into question about her qualifications to be a senator. This Constitution says to be a senator, you have to be a citizen of the United States for 9 years. Okay, and so when, if ever, did her parents become legal citizens? And I see no evidence that they ever did. And it had to have been before her 16th birthday, which at the time the family code, you know, said that if your parents are naturalized before you're 16, then you're a citizen, and on and on. So again, it really brings into question whether or not she is even eligible to hold the office she has right now. Now, I have no doubt whatsoever that the left is just going to dismiss this whole thing out of hand. You probably won't even hear it again, okay? Because for whatever reason, the Republicans don't have the guts to bring it up. And also, the left is going to fight tooth and nail. And it's not only about having the candidate they want, but it's about the whole issue of birthright citizenship. Because why do they love birthright citizenship so much? Votes. All these illegals come in, have babies, they got anchor babies, and now they're growing Democrats, you know, as they grow up. You know, this whole issue is terrible. You think about it. You have not only illegals coming in, and, you know, workers and having anchor babies, but you have people flying in, mothers flying in 9 months pregnant on vacation to the United States, waiting a month having their baby, and now their babies are natural-born citizens. You know, it makes absolutely no sense. The only two countries, big countries in the whole world that do that are the U.S. and Canada. And again, the U.S. didn't do it by law, by fiat from the State Department. And Canada does it because they're crazy anyway. But you know, the only other countries, there's like 20 other countries that do this natural born, this birthright citizenship, and they're all just kind of small players and don't really care. But all the, England, all of Europe, they don't do that. They don't do that stuff. Anyway, bottom line is there is a big concern in my mind about Kamala Harris being a natural-born citizen, that she does not meet the requirements. And it's obvious from her rhetoric that she does not hold a tight allegiance to our founders' view of America. And I personally don't think she's capable of the oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. So, questions, comments? Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, maybe you already touched on it. And I'm ignorant too, so if I put you on the spot, I'm sorry, Ray. So were the Federalists, presumably written by Madison, were they silent on the defining natural-born citizen?
Well,
and that's why the 14th Amendment.
A lot of the stuff was, a lot of what the founders didn't define in the Constitution was kind of like general knowledge from,
Right. So what did they mean, right? So what was the meaning to the men who wrote it?
the meaning of the man who wrote a natural born citizen was someone born in America of American parents,
Right.
or born of American parents somewhere else.
Right.
Just like John McCain, when he was running, the left brought up, oh, you're not a natural born citizen because you're born in Panama. Time out. Both his dad was in the Army, wasn't I forget? Navy, and he was at Panama, stationed in Panama at the time. Both his mother and father were natural born citizens, and therefore he's a natural born citizen, period. That being born on soil didn't matter as much as what your allegiance was at the time.
That's right.
And they got all their views from, from the great thinkers from England, Blackstone mainly. But you go back and read Blackstone, and originally, they thought, well, if, and that was the whole thing about Obama, because only one of his parents was American. And I think originally they thought, well, both parents should be American, and then you're a natural born citizen, but then it kind of morphed into at least one parent, so. All right, anything else?
Okay, well, thank you very much. That was great.
All right.
Candy will be passing the basket to support our tea party. We'll be using the money for other things. Also, we have Jimmy Matlock came in. I don't know whether he wants to say anything or not. No, he just want to recognize him being here.
Right.
Oh, excuse me. And now we're going to have one of our feature speakers, Buddy Bradshaw, will be coming up and talking about what's going on locally with Loudon County.
Thank you, Wayne. Excuse me. Well, I'll give you the bad news first. Tax bills go out, I think, on Friday. So, I'll get that out of the way. Don't blame me.
As long as they don't go up.
Well, they're not. Our tax rate's the same. Actually, we went backwards over the last 10 years. That's not going to probably be a solid trend forever, but at $1.80, we're still one of the third or fourth lowest in the state of Tennessee. Census numbers, we're tentatively going to be around 54,500 people when this census wraps up. So that is just a little bit of a surprise. I knew we'd be over 50. I didn't imagine 54,000, close to midway through the 50s. So that's going to be
How many of those are legal?
That's a very good question. We'll probably never know.
Isn't that the whole purpose of the census?
You would imagine, yes. But how many Teleco villagers? How many villagers do we have? If Teleco Village was a city, they'd be the #1 city in the state of Tennessee for doing their census ahead of time. That little pocket right there was #1 in the state by far. So outstanding. Our courthouse, if you look downtown Loudon, you see there's absolutely nothing going on, and that's a good thing. They've got the air exchange units plugged in, the walls are braced up, so right now trying to dry our courthouse out. The black mold was just rampant, even worse after the fire, so no activity right now is a good thing. Hopefully that won't take too long. We'll be able to get in there and start working. The next step should be the easier of the steps we've been through so far. We'll tear everything out that's not already tore out, empty it out, and then give everything a good clean and start rebuilding. Basically the same structure, and I think it'll still be a little bit of a destination for sightseers and tourists, and still bring people into our county to see. And we'll still, at that point in time, be the oldest functioning courthouse in the state of Tennessee. So that's a bit of pride that we had there as well. COVID, of course, is all over the place. The mask mandate has been a hot topic. It continues to be a hot topic. My personal opinion on it was it's up to the individual, not the government. I thought it was overreach. Of course, the governor passed it on to the mayors, and could, but could doesn't always mean should. I think there's a fine line right there. What does that become? Not just an overreach, but there's also the risk. I don't think any risk here in Loudon County at all. Probably locally for that. For me, it came down to some possible infringements on your civil liberties, such as, if I mandated a mask, well, if you see on TV, Bernie Sanders is going to mandate them nationwide. Does that become probable cause for a stop, for a traffic stop, or a halt and frisk, or a search? There's a lot of slippery slope when we start getting into that stuff. I think it's, I've always thought it's best the individual take care of themselves and do what's the best they think for them to do. I hate to go in front of Tim Geiger because I know he's going to do a better job than me. I'm trying to, is there any questions from the crowd? I'll be happy to field any questions we might have.
I have one, actually I have a couple. The money for the courthouse, is that coming from insurance money, and what is going on with that money?
It is 100% insured. As long as we don't spend over $12 million to fix it, and if we do, we can really arrive somewhere. As long as we don't go over what we put in, that we're 100% blanket coverage, not a dime of taxpayer money will be spent on the courthouse, with the exception of the rates we've paid over the last few years.
Okay, the other question was, in the budget, we are tapping into our reserve. What is going to be going on with that, and what's the projection for next year?
Next year's going to be tight, and I'm glad you don't ask the hard questions. Next year's tight. It's going to be, we're at a little bit of a crossroads. I wish I could sit here and say absolutely everything's going to be just hunky-dory. We're going to have to look at revenue increases. Now, with state or with local government, that happens two ways. Basically, that's sales tax, property tax. And so, you know, it's something we'll have to look at. We took a step that we needed when we built the jail here. We retired some debt coming off, and so we put this together, and it was absolutely needed. If you've ever sat there, and I can remember even back when I was with the Loudon Police Department, you're sitting there, you're booking somebody in, and 2 jailers, and we'll walk 15 or 20 inmates through. Luckily, inmates aren't very organized. They can take control at any time in the situation we were in. And so if you look at what we've been able to accomplish without the tax increase, that's great. And you look at our sales tax revenues are high. Even through the COVID, they're even higher. We're seeing people that aren't going to Walmart or Food City or into the cities to shop. They're actually shopping with Amazon and grocery drop-offs and such. And so with the internet sales tax, it's been incredible for Loudon County. State of Tennessee, the legislatures did just a phenomenal job getting that passed through. And so our business taxes are up. The one loss we did see was the all income tax was about $20,000 less as it started to phase out. And then our business tax was high. And then our court costs, of course, we didn't have court for 3 or 4 months, I guess. And so we didn't see any court costs or fines coming in. We'll get those back eventually as well. The thing about Loudon County, and what puts us in such a great situation, is that if you look around us, we're the cheapest of anywhere around. We've not painted ourselves in a corner like, I don't want to pick on Monroe County, but Monroe County. You know, they've increased the wheel tax, and now they're still putting another 25 to 30 cents on. Roane County, same way. We're at $1.80. Knox County is at $2.01, I think, but now their sales tax pennies, or their tax pennies, I'm sorry, are worth $1 million a piece. Loudon County's at $250 something. Roane County's at $270 something. Monroe County's at $240 something and a $50 wheel tax. And so Loudon County's in great shape fiscally. We've been responsible, and over the last, I know at least 6 years, I think before that, nothing, you know, we've done pretty good. I don't necessarily agree with dropping it when we could have used that money for better 6 years ago. Whether it was political or not, I'm not going to get into all that, but we've done a good job of curtailing our costs. If you look at our departments, we run on skeleton crews. Every now and then we will lose an employee because they have a better opportunity. We don't lose many because I guarantee most of our employees believe in what we're doing. And that goes from the sheriff's department to my office to the trustee's office. We've created that team environment, and that our employees are invested in the success of our future. And that's one of the reasons, you know, we are on our 3rd consecutive clean audit from the state of Tennessee. One of only 14 counties out of 95 to get a clean audit. We're one of only 4, I believe, that actually gets consecutive. So when it comes down to 3, I think it drops down to maybe 2 or 3. So our people are vested in, they do the right thing, they're proud of their jobs and appreciate their jobs. And so that's what keeps Loudon County on the right track.
Okay, and one more question. All the documents that were in the courthouse, I know a lot of them got wet. Were we able to save birth certificates, all the rest of the stuff?
The lion's share of their documents were retrieved and saved. They're still in storage. we were in the process of kind of going through them slowly but surely, and then the COVID hit, and that's kind of put everything on a little bit of a back burner right now. And so that's one thing, when it starts cooling off some, I'm going to want to start that back up. Of course, I was always very proud that I didn't have any documents in the old courthouse, and was then informed that I do the same role as the county judge did 70 years ago, so I've got plenty of documents in there I need to go through. Don't know if I need to say them or not, so that's what Pat Hunter's for. I'll get her to help me out.
Mayor, let's get back to the census for a minute, and you may not be able to answer this yet, but what kind of impression are you getting looking at redistricting?
That's going to be interesting. You look at our pockets of growth. I think the time is coming that the 7th district will need 2 commissioners, which is Tellico Village. I think Rarity Bay, which me personally, I don't see the maps. I think Rarity Bay, Tellico Village coming in together and giving a second commissioner. I think the time's there. Just for the simple fact of the density population, one of our heaviest growing populations, and one of our biggest tax bases as well. I think the time's coming, and I think it's there. I think we may end up picking up another commissioner when it's all said and done.
Say, either the state or the federal government, I forgot which one, gave Loudon County almost $1 million.
The state gave us 1.1 and some change.
Okay, what are y'all going to do with that money?
It was originally slated and stated to be capital expenses only. And back in March or April, we got some wind that it may be just handed down, period. Myself, Henry County Mayor Brent Greer, we pitched a fit. Because you look at the counties, and I hope to goodness Loudon County don't become one of them. And if it does, it'll be against my jumping up and down. But it was meant for capital only. And somewhere along the line, they took the strings off. You can use it now for whatever. You can use it for general fund expenses, anything but your school expenses. And I fought that because at the end of this fiscal year, there's going to be a lot of counties receive a sizable portion of money and have absolutely nothing to show for it. I intended to use it for upgrading our IT department, or all of our IT, our computers. We've got people using computers that are 8, 9, 10 years old. That's ridiculous. We've got buildings that need some refurbishing done. We've got some buildings, handicap accessibility. Some of our older buildings need to be improved. And so all of that, hopefully we'll still be able to accomplish it. I worry about it. I really do, because it's just a crutch. And it's not a very strong crutch to tap. And the counties that use that to prop up will be the ones that really pay the price after this next fiscal year ends.
We got one more here.
What about the new annex?
Not anytime soon. It's going to be a little ways out. With the budget, with COVID hitting the time that it did, we scrounged and scraped and got every penny, every dime we could find to help bring this budget back in, to push a tax hike back as far as we can push it back, without getting ourselves in trouble at the same time. The Sheriff's Department, we had a sizable, we went to the new jail, we have to have people to work it. The Sheriff's Department was super gracious last year in, staggering the hires. So now on paper, it looked really bad. Not as bad in real life. This year, we're going to see a true snapshot, a true picture of the money that we're going to spend and the money we're going to need to support it. The annex is down the road. I hope it's not really down the road. It just depends on how quickly we rebound. And I tell you, COVID plays a huge part in it. Just the simple fact that when are they going to shut us down again? Now, we were very fortunate that our essentials were just about every industry in Loudon County. And Malibu Boat shut down for 4 weeks, but our big industries and our larger employers and our quality employers were all deemed essential, so we didn't lose many layoffs. And now that the $600 is gone, we're seeing unemployment drop back down again.
Okay.
Where are the businesses in the county coming back? What percentage would you say you're back to full employment, full activity?
Well, most of our business, Biscay's, I'll go back to Biscay's. Back in 1992 or 3, when I entered the job market, I tried every one world to get on Biscay's. My dad worked there 33 years. Great job. You're making $45,000 to $50,000 a year without overtime. Just quality benefits. Well, they can't get people. If you can pass a drug test and not a felon, they'll hire you on the spot. And guess what? It's too hot, or they have to work 12-hour shifts, or I may have to work second shift. Come on, I can't do that. we can't get people to work. It's crazy. Morgan Olson, you know, they don't pay as well as Viscase. They can't get people to work. All of our industries are up back to full bore. It's just a matter of finding people now. And what we're running into is a little bit of a housing, I wouldn't say crisis, maybe a housing need for entry-level housing. Because right now there's just, we've got the jobs, we just don't have the people. And when we get Business and Yachts gets here and gets full bore, that's going to be another several hundred jobs that we'll bring a lot of folks with them. There's going to be a lot of open jobs as well. So we've got to find people to work them. But they're on the Greenback Peninsula, so I think they're going to be able to draw from Blount County, Monroe County, and Loudon County to fill those roles as well.
When are they opening?
I don't know exactly what COVID's done to them. They were finishing up one more boat. It's not really a boat, it's a yacht. And they were pulling equipment out of the ground, putting it on a rail car, and sending it back as they finished it through the process. Hopefully 18 months we'll see them up and going.
Okay, well, thank you, buddy, for that information. That was great. And now we have Sheriff Geyer that's going to be talking about their department, the jail, and hiring, and we have quite a few other questions later on for him.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Wayne. And I think we could all go home right now with Ray's phenomenal class training tonight, I guess. I have something to add to that. It's kind of ironic that you would talk about the 14th Amendment, 12th Amendment, and my life, the Geiler household, we for entertainment we watch Jeopardy at night, and we're fortunate we can, but and we record all of them as best we can, and you know it wouldn't surprise me that when I get home tonight I'll be watching Jeopardy, but you know with the COVID thing going on. And, you know, they've gone back to resorted to do some showing old 20-year-old episodes and going into the vault, they say. So they had some kind of championship going on the other day, and the final Jeopardy question was, or answer was, which vice president was elected to 2 terms after he was vice president. So the answer was in early on in your, does anybody know that? Vice president that came on and was president. Who? Jefferson. That's right. Okay, so that got me going and interested in what you were saying. Jimmy, good to see you. Wayne had asked me to come tonight, and we're going to, first of all, he said that he wants to hear about the jail, and we're going to talk about the jail. And then we're going to try to go through this as fast as we can, Wayne, but then he said crime, you know, the state of the county as far as crime goes. And then he said, hey, let's talk about drugs too. And, oh, and by the way, protesters. So we're getting into a lot of area tonight, and then I get hit at the door by Pandora and Jim, you know, hey, did you get my email? And I said, no, I didn't, but we've got some more questions for you. I didn't get that, I'm sorry, but we'll get to them tonight, I guess. But I have to commend our County Commission and Mayor Bradshaw on the job that they have done in the last year or two. On especially keeping the rate, the tax rate down, building this facility. We're now in our, I think, 3rd year going in construction. But the last time I was here, I believe Captain Keener was with me as well. We were talking about the need of the new jail, and that we're getting ready to, you know, break ground and all that stuff. So we are and should have already been in the jail. Originally it was February, we should have been in. That was the target date. Then March 7th, I believe, was a date that we had, and then COVID started hitting. But we started seeing some things that we weren't happy with as far as the construction goes. We had leaks in the roof. We were were showing spots in the ceiling tiles and things like that, and our doors were not opening properly, and doors were not the doors we wanted or needed in a jail, you know. And we had already been to Monroe County's new jail and toured it and saw the job that they did, and it was phenomenal. We had the same architectural firm and the same construction firm doing theirs. So there were some things that we just weren't happy with, so I think they were addressed here a month or so ago, and people have been getting on it, and we're about ready, I think. The only thing is, and the mayor agrees that we need to have a public show, you know, an open house, if you will. And however, I don't believe that's going to be possible in the times that we are. So we got to put in our heads together, and I think we're going to come up with a virtual tour that we can put on the Facebook or wherever, and give you a good tour of the new facility without really being there. So got photographs tonight, and Captain Keener, who is my jail administrator, is going to kind of run you through the old jail as it was and is, and we're still there. And then when we move over to the new jail, we're going to renovate part of the old jail to accommodate some of the mostly females that we're going to kind of incorporate into the whole population. So then we're going to go to drugs after that, and I've got my drug man here. And so Lieutenant Ezel will hit on some of the trends of the drugs that's going on and right now, and some of the things that we have got away from and headed toward, and it's rather eye-opening, to say the least. Then we'll talk about crime and whatnot. But I'm going to turn it over to Captain Keener right now, who is in the know about our new jail and the old jail.
Well, I'll tell you what, Sheriff, we'll team teach. I'm going to let Lieutenant Ezel pass out some handouts. I'm going to have to step over here so I can look at the screen. What he's passing out, someone had asked how the coronavirus had affected crime in Loudon County and what we were doing. So these are some numbers. If you get a chance, glance at it, and then when we start talking about it, you may have some good questions. As the sheriff said, I think we were here 2 or 3 years ago begging for a new jail. We're this close. We should have already been there, but it's an exciting time. So thank you for letting me get the brag on it. I have gone through the virtual tour. I hoped it would be done tonight, so my job would be a little easier. But I put these together because it's not. So it is basically a slideshow. I'm going to run through pretty quickly. And if you have questions, by all means, yell them out. The old jail has 91 beds, 78 males and 13 females. We have 23 employees, and it was last touched, if you will, in 2004. We are moving into a 274-bed facility with 214 males and 60 female beds, which is, we're going to be dangerously close to being overcrowded when we move in. We have a lot of females. The 2019 average was 175 inmates per day. Again, we have 91 beds at this time. We had a high of 211 in 2019. The sheriff started fighting for this addition in 2011. So it's taken us 9 years to get here. He started fighting long before I took over.
And me.
Thank you, Mayor. As we move through, you're going to see, I'm kind of ashamed at what we have. We've done a great job, but I was looking at the slides today, and I feel like my house is dirty, if that makes sense. So you'll see we're fixing to move into a high-tech, a great-looking facility. This is our current sally port. This is where the inmates first come in. And I'm going to go through kind of quickly. This is from one angle to the other. They come through, the doors roll down, we can go get the inmates. Our new sally port looks like this. Right there, I have, it's storage right now. We have mattresses lined up, but you can kind of see how clean and how well built it is. I believe it will hold 4 cars in the end. It will hold a bus if we need to. We've got plenty of room. Intake is our booking area. That's where all the inmates come through. Right now, that's what our booking desk looks like. Those 2 computers are for the patrol officers to sit down. One patrol officer sits down and types out his warrant. The corrections officer will sit at the other and start the intake process. These are the doors with the 2 are our holding cells. Back in the day, we used to call them drunk tanks. Okay, those are the only 2 in the jail. So you can imagine we have way more intoxicated, impaired people than just 2. This is moving on out in our fingerprint room, our photo room. Again, the old, this is the new. This is from one end to the other. We have 6 holding cells. 2 of those are group holding, that we can house 20 inmates if we need to. You can see kind of how it's going to look. The officers are going to be back here at their stations. This will be manned by 3 corrections officers, imagine 2 males and a female, dealing with all the fresh intakes. The coolest thing that we have, this is a padded cell. Now I heard of those back in the day, but nowadays this is a foam cell where if someone's trying to hurt themselves, we put them in there. The drain in the floor is flushable. So we have a flush button on the outside that's just amazing. I'm really proud of our padded cell.
We've named that cell after a commissioner or 2. Maybe 1.
This is our current property room. When we had 200 inmates, every tote, every black bag belonged to somebody. That's their clothes. We put them in uniforms, cell phones, etc. This is the new property room. Obviously, the totes will go up there, and they'll be in much better order. This room and 2 others, because we made the decision to build onto the current jail, we built the property room, the kitchen, and the laundry big enough to sustain the next build, if that makes sense. It was cheaper to build it on this end. We'll have 275 beds, but we can sustain a 550 bed facility. Our control room is where our officers run the jail. This is a picture that embarrasses me. That's what we look like right now. I have an officer in there at all times. He's watching those black and white cameras, some are color. We have a fan hooked up on our recorders, because if we don't, they'll overheat. We had an encoder go out, and when our audio visual came in, they had to get on eBay and bid on one, because they didn't make that brand anymore. So that's a safety and security issue. So that's what we're living in. This is what we're going through. You can see through the windows. We have really good visibility. We can see into the cells, which is important. And then behind this, on the other side of the room, looks just like this. So I can put 2 people in here. They're watching cameras, they're opening doors, they're operating the whole facility. That's just a bank of cameras and what it's going to look like. This is magic. Lieutenant Ezo, would you do that?
No, sir.
Hit that little icon at the bottom. This is a touchscreen monitor that allows us to open every door in the jail. We'll open the gates. We have intercoms in every cell where the inmate can contact us. We can shut off the lights and the utilities. I don't know if you can see the little green icon in the middle. It looks like a faucet. We can shut off the water in the jail. 2 weeks ago, we're so close. I take inmates over and we start cleaning. I'm getting excited. There's no water in the building. We push it, turn it off, reboot it. For 2 weeks, we're trying to get water. We have it for a minute, it disappears. The people who work this magic screen from afar called and said, we figured it out. We colored your faucet icon the wrong color. Green means off. Red means on. So when people ask why have you not moved yet, that's one of the reasons. Because I'm stupid, I guess. So we have our female cell. If you'll remember, right now I have 13 beds. And that's what it looks like on a busy day. When I took over the jail in 2014, I had 44 women, 13 beds, 6 of them were high-risk pregnancy. And I knew right then that Sheriff Guy did not like me very much because my headaches got crazy. This is taken in the middle of the night from our security cam. There are 50 bodies in that room, 13 beds. Just another one of them up moving. This is the new female cell block. As you can see, it's a 2-tier system. Each door you see has 2 or 4 beds. So we'll be able to lock them down individually. I'm taking it from a control room that actually looks down into the cell. So now I'm going to have an employee manning that at all times where she's sitting there watching everything the inmates are doing. This is from the cell looking up at the control room. So it's much safer, it's a neater, nicer building. Our male minimum security, right now we have 32 beds. Again, this is 50 bodies. They're up milling about. This is our new minimum security cell. 64 beds, okay? So something called classification, where I decide who goes into which cell, is very important. This is the one that makes us a little nervous. We have doubled staff. I went from 4 officers running the jail to where we worked in 12-hour shifts. I'll have 11 officers on each shift. Now, of those 11, 4 will be female, right? So I got 7 big burly dudes to work whatever fight may break out in the 64-man pot. So I'm still a little bit nervous. I don't think I have enough officers, but I'm grateful for what I have. Again, 2 levels. This is the coolest thing ever. Those little green things you see on the wall are iPads. We give those to the inmate, and the inmate can have their law library. They have their access to rights, things that I must supply them. But it also gives us privileges. I can have their visit on there. I no longer have to move an inmate out of that cell block, have a contact or a face-to-face visit with somebody. They're on that iPad. We can put music, we can put games, we can put educational materials, and we'll charge them, right? So if they buy X amount, if they want music, they can pay for it. The company gets a fee, the county gets a fee, and I have that carrot dangling, right? Be good, or I'm going to take away this magic iPad. So it's a wonderful tool, helps me control them, and it gives them access to things they just don't have right now. So I'm still learning how to use it. The box on the wall is the same thing. They can stand in front of it and have their visits or whatever. Our maximum security cells, this is what it looks like right now. That is I have an entire cell block for child sex offenders. These are people that hurt kids, right? I have to keep them out of the general population because even bad guys don't like that type of bad guys. So for their protection, here they are. This is the worst of the worst. This is, I have a C and D block. I have about 14 beds for the most dangerous inmates in Loudon County. This is the only camera that looks through there. If you see off to the right, you see the doorways that go into 4-man cells or 3-man cells. I can lock those down, but when the fights break out, I don't catch a whole lot of it. So I often have inmates get hurt that are in here. You know, in this cell alone, I have 3 charges of murder. Okay, in the cell across from them, I think I got 2 there. So it's important that this is the old cell. You guys have heard of the hole. This is it. If they fight my guards or fight each other, they go to lockdown. This isolation, this is the oldest part of the jail. To be honest, they love it. It's quiet, they get some sleep, and they earn their way back out by being good. This is our new maximum security cell. So I have, I don't know, 24 beds, 26 beds in here. I can lock them down one at a time, and then I control when they come out. So if I want the top level to be out from 8 to noon, to use phones, take showers, I can control that with that guy in control. So it's going to be a much safer place for us. This is our current recreation room. This is called indoor rec. The state says I have to allow them time out of their cells. This is indoor rec. A year ago when I'm at 211, that's what indoor rec looked like. I had 23 bodies in that room with no toilet, no shower, no potable water. So my officers are spending half their shift just transferring these people who are sick and coming off pills to bathrooms across the jail. This is our outdoor rec. I give them sunlight every week. That's what the top looks like. Now, the new indoor-outdoor rec. This allows me to put the inmates in here. If it's a sunny day, I roll the door. It's basically chicken wire, or something they can't get through, and contraband can't get through to us, and that's outdoor rec. The great thing about this is that the door connects to that maximum security cell. The worst it works, I don't have to bring them out into the hallway to move. I get on the microphone, say step through. They step through, the door turns green or yellow or whatever means locked. And then there they'll be. So it's a great safety device for us. This is our indoor rec room. It's now a program room. The state of Tennessee comes in and says we have to keep males and females sight and sound separated. So this is a male classroom. On the other side of the jail I have a female classroom. Right now my males and females at different times utilize the same public areas. So I have a lot of contraband, lots of notes or, you know, I miss you baby or whatever. But now we've got everybody completely separated. You see cable boxes hanging from the wall. I don't know what wall I want my TV on yet. They'll only have one, I promise. This, again, is our kitchen. I didn't take a picture of the old kitchen. This is the new place. Again, it is big enough to feed 550 inmates. Hopefully we don't get to that. But we're prepared. And our laundry. Any questions? Yes.
Who works in the kitchen and the laundry? Is that inmates or is that?
Yeah, I have guards that oversee them, but inmates, I have corrections officers that prepare the food. I have a dietitian and an assistant. And they stay, but the inmates are washing the trays, they're washing the laundry, etc.
And how long are inmates there in that facility?
However long it takes them to get through the court system, I have them from 3 days to, I've got one that's been there about 4 years now, waiting to go try them on murder.
Do they have educational classes?
That's a great question. She asked if they have educational classes or opportunities. We don't right now. 3 years ago, the state cut out the GED program for the jails, and I'm not sure why. But we were trying that indoor rec room with 23 people, every Tuesday at 9 a.m. I would move them somewhere to allow classes to come in. I'm hopeful that with my new program rooms and plenty of staff that we'll start that up pretty quick. I hope to have a lot more than what we were able to offer in the old jail, especially when COVID ends.
Do you have any volunteers that help you in education or anything like that?
We have volunteer ministers that come in. We have church services, non-denominational church services for the inmates that want to go, but as far as anything else volunteer, we don't.
Not being aware of general jail and statistics, how does this stand in relation to other counties and perhaps even the country? I mean, 500, or you said 250 inmates, is that a lot? Our county has 55,000 people. I don't know what would be anticipated as far as prison population?
That's a great question. We built a jail with 91 beds, and we have 215 inmates at one point. So obviously, we weren't planning for that kind of crime rate. I think on average, we book in about 65 people a week. And for me, for Loudon County, that's quite a few arrests. With the numbers we're going to talk about next, you can see what month everything stopped in Loudon County. You guys can pretty much imagine. But, I mean, our patrol guys are very active, and we do have some crime, obviously. But I think, 65 a week is crazy for little old Loudon County.
Well, to put things into perspective, I think, you look around some of the other counties beside us, Roane County and Monroe County. Monroe and Roane are very, aren't they, pretty close to our population?
We're a little bit above. Monroe County is the only county that's actually losing people. Monroe County will probably around 10 more than Monroe.
Okay, and so they have easily 100 more inmates than we have. Roane County the same way. Their jails are much more overcrowded. Well, Monroe got a new jail. Their capacity is now over 400, I think, isn't it? The new capacity. Roane County is about the same. So we, we're considerably lower. However, I guess I'm the only one in the room here that can say that they've been in the original jail, worked in the original jail in the early 80s. When the new jail then was built in 1975, and it had 36 beds. To my knowledge, it was never full in the 80s. Then in 1990, they determined that they're going to have more space. And they added roughly 23 more beds. Made it a 59-bed facility. And then in 2004, we added, what it was, to make it 91. Wasn't very good in math. You, how many did you? 59, then the 91. Yeah. So it seemed like about every 15 years or so, that's when the capacity got to the point of, well, in 2004, we didn't make it till about 2011. Within 6 or 7 years, we were busting at the seams. So we were able to control that for the next 5 or 6 years, and then it just popped open. I mean, we've been holding as many as 215 inmates in a 91-bed facility, and that's horrendous on the staff, or horrendous on the inmates as well.
So we're going to do one more question, then we're going to have to move on because we've got 3 other topics we wanted to cover.
Last year, during the construction phase, there was an issue about whether or not you could get video conference back to the court system. So you didn't have to prepare a prisoner to move him over to the court. Did you ever get that worked out?
When COVID kicked in, we learned of something called Zoom. Because all of a sudden the judges didn't want inmates moved either. Not for a minute. So yeah, we are adapting swiftly, and we have found some other ways.
Okay, good. We need to move on to some of the other subjects, or we'll be here quite late.
It's your fault.
I know.
You want to do drugs or calls for service? Oh, calls for service. Good job.
Call for service.
All right, the handout I gave you, I condensed a 5-page handout into some more interesting crimes that we have, if you will. That may answer some of your questions about what goes on in Loudon County crime. So some things that I do want to point out is, in January, the Loudon County Sheriff's Office alone answered 1,992 calls. February 1911, March, you see it start dropping just a little bit. I think that we went into lockdown mode about March 15th or 17th. So in April, we went to 1,306 calls from 1,992. So yeah, you can see as it started, everything dropped, but it's picking back up again. We're getting, 1,025 and whatnot halfway through August now. But on the left side, you see the types of crimes: alarms, burglaries, deceased persons, domestics. We've all kind of, man, when we quarantined and locked down, everybody started arguing, right? And, it went up a little bit, but they pretty much leveled out. They stayed the same. Fight calls, juvenile problems have kind of increased, I think. Our officers are still busy with their calls for service. The one that stands out to me is down towards the bottom, transport of prisoners. This is where we were going to other counties to pick up inmates that they've arrested on our warrants, okay? So in January, you see that we had to drive out of the county 107 times to go pick up somebody. In April 23, everybody stopped. We weren't serving warrants that were not violent. We weren't knocking on doors, if you will. Certainly if we run across them, they went to jail. But everything kind of stopped in April, right? Right above it, our patrol guys, traffic stops, they love that more than anything. That's like a hound dog hunt, right? In January, they stopped 518 cars. April, 82. So everything just, now they're still mad at me and the sheriff. Well, probably me more than the sheriff. But because we said, hey, we don't want to risk it. We can't bring them in. We don't know what this COVID is. And all of a sudden, everybody that comes through the door has to go into one room, right? And so we feared the outbreak. We have tested several inmates. They've all been negative. I think we've had 2 officers positive since the outbreak. Certainly had to quarantine a couple. But any questions on just how COVID has affected what we're doing? Maybe not.
Okay, well, thanks. We'll go on to the next subject.
Drugs, is that what you want? Huh?
So I'm going to try to talk with this thing. A lot of times I'll be out here like this because I'm a hand talker. If you want to mute me up, you just tie my hands up and I can't say a word.
Oh, microphones.
I'd probably need it, but I'm here and here. The sheriff asked me to come and talk to you this evening about drug trends here in the county. I will tell you that as far as the county goes, we have the same problems any other county in the state, the country has. Luckily, the magnitude of those problems for us aren't as bad as other counties around us. Knox County, Rome County, Monroe County. We're a little less than they are as far as the problems that we have, the amount of drugs that we have. I'll run through 4, 5, 6 different types of drugs and kind of give you the trends now. Not in any particular order, but the first one that comes to mind is marijuana. Marijuana now is we're not seeing as many of the old style homegrown patches, stuff that we used to find. Be out walking in the woods, squirrel hunting or whatever, and the next thing you know, you roll up on a marijuana patch. It's not to say they're not out there, they're just not as large as they used to be. The guys that like to grow the marijuana now have moved it a lot of indoors. And with the culmination of hydroponics and stuff and the age of the internet, you're able to get on YouTube, you can get on YouTube and find out how to grow the best marijuana in the country in like 20 minutes. So instead of putting out 20, 30, 40, 50 plants, you've got people that'll do 3 plants in a closet, which really makes it hard for us to find, especially if they're just doing it for personal use. Our biggest marijuana dealer we have right now is the U.S. Postal Service. The United States Post Office delivers more marijuana than anybody in the country. Because what's happened was in these states that have legalized recreational marijuana, you pick up the phone and you call your cousin who lives in California and say, hey, can you send me 2 pounds? Your cousin says, yeah, send me $7,000, $8,000 and I'll send you all you want. So next thing you know, you got money going that way. The little the boxes that you get, and I don't mail a whole lot of stuff, so I'm not familiar with the terminology. The little boxes, the packets, and the envelopes that you can go pick them up in front of the post office. They fill that up, seal it up, send it to you, and it shows up. Most of the people that we are arresting now for marijuana for resale are getting their marijuana through the mail. It's coming from Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let's see, another drug that we're having a problem with now is crystal meth. You know, for years we had the homemade shake and bake meth issues that we were having. Legislation really started cracking down on the amount of pseudoephedrine, which is a precursor that you had to have to produce it. They cracked down on it. That made the fines, that made the jail time and everything a lot stiffer, a lot more. The punishment was a lot harsher if you were caught manufacturing meth. So the cartels seen we can make our meth here and send it there, and they'll buy ours because they're not manufacturing. If you get caught with 2 or 3 grams of meth, the fines are less than it was if you got caught with a shake bottle after you manufactured meth. You're not charged with manufacturing, you're charged with simple possession or possession with intent to distribute. So crystal really picked up. Homemade shake and bake meth has really fell off. We're not having the labs. We're not having to go out and suit up in Tyvek suits, respirators and stuff, and adulterate hazardous material, hazardous waste, and call in cleanup crews and all that. Cocaine, powder cocaine, we have dropped very low in the county on powder cocaine of what we're seeing. Crack cocaine, very low compared to what it used to be. Our big problem now is opiates. Our prescription pain pill problem has gone down because the price of the pills have gone up so much. But what we ran into was, as a whole, as a country as a whole, we created an epidemic of an opioid addiction. And then we start raising the prices of these pills, and the street value goes up, and they get harder and harder to get. Then to circumvent that, the cartels have seen, we're going to send an opiate your way that we know you'll get, we know you'll buy, and it's going to be cheaper. So here comes the heroin. So heroin comes up from Mexico, crosses the border, spread out from the border. It comes into Atlanta. Atlanta is the largest drug hub in the southeast. And then it goes out from Atlanta. But something about the heroin in Atlanta versus the meth in Atlanta, when the meth comes across the border and comes into Atlanta, it goes out all different places. It goes straight to the destination. The heroin goes from Atlanta to further north, Michigan, New York, Chicago, and then it trickles back down. The trend we're having now is the heroin is coming from Michigan mostly. We've got crews of guys that are involved in the narcotics trade in Michigan, Detroit, Flint, places like that, who are getting together, 8 or 10 people. They'll send 2 or 3 down. They'll come to Knoxville. They'll rent. Everybody know what an Airbnb house is? Up until last year, I had no idea what an Airbnb was. I had no clue. Now I know you can get online and you can rent a house for however long you want. They're getting online up there. They're renting Airbnb houses down here, and they're setting up shop, and they're dealing to our citizens who are going to Knoxville, picking up the amount of heroin they want and coming back here. What's happening now with the heroin, though, is replacing it with fentanyl. And fentanyl, laced in heroin, you have no way to regulate how much fentanyl you're going to ingest. Fentanyl is probably the #1 cause of an overdose when it comes to heroin. Because when our addicts were doing the prescription medication, that prescription pill is manufactured in a lab by a pharmacy. They know exactly how much opiate, how much binder, whatever's in that pill is quality controlled. Now on the street with heroin, it's not. You've got a guy sitting in a shady, seedy room, taking a scoop of this and a scoop of this and a scoop of this, and he's shaking it up with a blender, and then he's putting out in a bindle you either a gram or a tenth of a gram, and he's going to give it to you. Well, he didn't sit and count how many grains of fentanyl he needed to put in that to get you high, but to keep you from dying. Make sense? To put it into perspective, anybody have a sweet and low packet in front of you? This sweet and low packet contains probably about a gram of powder. If this was straight fentanyl, this would be 500 lethal doses of fentanyl. Just in one packet of sweetener. They can't regulate that when they put it into the powder, and then they're telling you, if you're buying it on the street, hey, this is heroin. So I went over crack cocaine, I went over pills, meth, LSD, maybe once or twice a year. We see it. A lot of times it's from people from out of state that are coming through. That are really the trends that we're seeing now. They change every once in a while. Our biggest trend now is like I said, we went away from the prescription pain medication and over into the heroin and the crystal meth. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned that the source of heroin and derivatives is Mexico. Is that the transport source? Is any of that Middle East, do you know, or is it origins? Are they Central and South America?
The cartels, they are getting it from overseas.
Right.
Mostly what they're getting now, though, is the fentanyl from China.
Oh, Chinese. Okay.
They're ordering it from China because you have labs in China that produce tons of fentanyl. And then the cartels have contacts there, and it gets shipped over. Your heroin, most of your heroin is going to come from Afghanistan and places like that.
Okay, good. Yes, great answers.
Mayor, you have Jamie?
Any other questions? Talking about the USB as being the biggest marijuana dealer, do we see a lot of edibles? How do you work about catching like the edibles?
What we're seeing is you're getting anything that contains THC that is available in any other state that's legalized it is getting shipped here. It'd be the edibles, the cartridges, the carts. The cartridges are a real big thing now. It's like a vape.
Oh, okay.
And it's just a little cartridge that's a liquid, but it's THC liquid. The thing is, unless you really get down and smell it, somebody can sit right next to you and have a vape or a cartridge or a pen and take a couple of draws off of it, and they're smoking marijuana sitting right next to you. You don't really realize it because it's straight THC is all it is. Yes, and really we really have no way to test that without sending it to the lab and getting them to test it. If we pull a car over and this guy's got a couple of vape pens there, and hey, what is that? I quit smoking and I vape. So what we have to do is we can't tell you what it is right now, so I can't arrest you on suspicion, right? Okay, I got that problem call. So I have to send this off to the lab. I have to cut them loose, and then when it comes back from the lab, then I'll write my warrant. But then I got to run you down. I got to find you. I had to cut you loose, but I didn't know what it was. Thank you. Any other questions?
You don't have a test kit out there for that?
Not for the cartridges on there. We have test kits, we have knit kits, and right now we are working on purchasing what we call a True Narc. It is a machine that's very expensive, but it will test drugs inside their packaged form. One of the biggest dangers now for law enforcement is opening up something we don't know what it is. If we open up a bag of fentanyl and it becomes airborne and gets on our skin and we breathe it in, the officer can overdose on the scene. That's why we all started carrying Narcan first for officer safety, and now we have changed our policy where we use Narcan on citizens.
What about the sniffer dogs?
Yes, now the dogs will sniff 5 odors: marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, and heroin. The dogs are trained only on those 5 odors because those 5 odors are what we have now that are illegal. They will not hit on a pill, they will not hit on fentanyl or any type of prescription medication that's actually legal to possess if you have a prescription.
If they get on a
Let me
vape,
get you the mic.
are the dogs able to hit on a vape?
I'm sorry.
Are the dogs able to hit on a vape?
It really just depends. Most of the time they will hit an odor of the THC, but the dog is trained on the actual organic material of the marijuana, to where it's a combination of the cannabis, the THC, and all the other derivatives in there. So if the THC is high enough in that cart, then it can hit on it.
Okay.
The sheriff brought up a good point. Fentanyl. Is everybody familiar with fentanyl? You know what fentanyl is? Fentanyl is a real high-powered narcotic that is a respiratory analgesic, just like heroin or another depressant. Fentanyl was lab created, and it was actually created for people who have been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Fentanyl was created for an end-of-life, quality-of-life drug to kill the pain. Pretty much you were dying of cancer. And then they started taking this and abusing it, and they found out that it takes very small amounts to make a lot of people high. And they seen it was a really quick way to make a lot of money. So China started producing it, started sending over the ingredients. Now from what I understand from DEA, there's also labs in Mexico now that are fentanyl producers. They buy the components from China and combine them here.
Okay, our next topic.
Thank you, Shane. So originally I was told that fentanyl was an elephant tranquilizer.
Now, they are derivatives of fentanyl. There's carfentanil, acetylfentanyl, and several more. The way the DEA schedules stuff is when they get a base compound, and they know that that compound is a scheduled drug, they will schedule it. The way the criminal element works, they look at this and say, well, this certain compound is legal or illegal. Let's change a molecule of that compound to where it doesn't match the DEA schedule. So they change it. Now, what the sheriff's talking about is carfentanil. Carfentanil has no legitimate use in humans whatsoever. It was developed as an elephant tranquilizer. Believe it or not, there is a company in the United States that is permitted to produce 14 grams of carfentanil and acetylfentanyl a year. 14 grams. 14 of these packs is what they can legally produce a year. And it's used for elephant tranquilizer. For a vet to knock out an elephant. And people are using this drug as heroin.
Okay, so where do I go now, Wayne? Tell me what to do.
The bad guys like what we see in Washington, Oregon.
Okay, talk a little bit about protesters. So, you know, Loudon County, as we all know, is one of the best places in the world to live right now, I believe. We live in a wonderful, wonderful part of the country. We are not subjected to the things that are happening up in the northwest, the west, the north, Minneapolis, Chicago, Portland, Seattle. We did have one protest though, and it was it was deemed to be a peaceful protest, and it was at the Lenore City Hall about 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. near the 1st of July. And it was very well organized, no problems whatsoever. Mayor, I think you had mentioned something about someone coming up to the county building a couple of weeks ago. That never happened, did it?
That was a loudmouth liberal with an illusion of grandeur.
Okay. So, you know, again, we're very fortunate. I can't imagine. I see the videos. You've seen it all of how and what's taken place in some of these cities. It's just mind-boggling. My thoughts on that is, you know, a protester that is out here protesting and breaking the law needs to go to jail. If they are breaking the law, there's nothing wrong with someone holding a sign and chanting, but when you start hurting people, and you start burning businesses, and you start looting, that's a crime. And so they need to go to jail. You don't back down to those people. You don't give in to those people. You draw the line. You say, this is it. No more. And once you, when you give, they want more. You can't give enough. So you got to draw the line. So, you know, again, we were very fortunate, not just here in Loudon County, but here in the Tennessee, mostly East Tennessee. Knoxville had a few protests, but I don't know of anything that was dangerous or you know, it posed a huge problem. But I will tell you, you know, if we anticipate that, we're going to have to, we handled, I think, the city of Lenore City and the county helped out there in response to that protest, just in case something were to break out. Nothing broke out, everything went good. But if we had anticipated something more than that, and I'd have to reach out to my colleagues and get some help in here. And we could do it. It's just a matter of, we're not going to allow people to run over us. Okay? Not just us, but the community.
Okay. One of the things I talked to you about was, what about deputizing some of the citizens that have carry permits and have experience, like, you know, military police or military experience, to support the police?
I have no problem with that in the event that we're going to, you know, come to any event that would require that, Wayne. I think we, you know, if we anticipated something that big, I would probably call on the National Guard even to help us out too. So I hope that's agreeable, y'all, because I'm going to do whatever's necessary to keep crime down. You know, people breaking the law is not accepted.
Quick question on all this COVID stuff. We believe there's a lot of edicts that come down from the governor and the mayors, et cetera, that are unconstitutional. If the governor gave an order to do whatever, enforce something that you believe was unconstitutional, what would you do?
Personally, I would ask everybody to adhere to it as best that they can. You know, I'm not going to step on the constitutional rights of people. However, I would want people to respect other people. That's where we've gone astray too, I think, as a country, as a human race. We've lost respect for one another. We've not respected the law. We've not respected our neighbor, and that's where we're slipping. So I think we need to respect one another in regard to if it's proven, and of course everybody has a different view, different. Every day something comes out that, well, the mask is not doing anything. On the other hand, it is. So, you know, let's just take care of one another. Take care of yourself, and then try to take care of your neighbor.
Okay.
I'm not going to. I don't have the personnel to go out looking for people that's not wearing a mask.
what about self-protection, people in their homes, people coming in, looks like they're going to be, breaking your businesses, burning and looting and that kind of thing. Would you talk about people protecting themselves and using weapons, like people that kept those rioters off their property?
Right. Well, in Tennessee, we have a law that protects you as an individual, citizen, to protect your own abode, your home. And that's what I have told many people, you have the right to protect your home. If you feel like your life or your family's life is in danger, you have the right to take someone else's life if you feel like that they're going to take your life. So, and that has been extended also to the automobile. So it's been an extension of your home. So I firmly support that. I don't want anybody to come to my home uninvited with a weapon and marching in front of my house. I have to. The thing is, you got to use good judgment. You got to, you got to be in fear of your life. But take care of yourself.
You say protect your home. That really doesn't include your front lawn or your driveway. It's your home, correct?
That would be probably what the courts would say.
Okay, I wanted to make that clear. Okay.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about, I don't want to know the content or the sources, I want to know if you're getting intelligence about these groups, either federal or state. Are you getting intelligence support that you need from federal authorities, state authorities about these groups and their intents and what they're doing and how they operate in these kinds of things?
We are.
Good. That's all I want to know. I just want to know if that's flowing or if we need to yell at somebody to get those wheels turning, or
We're getting intelligence.
I can't believe that they're letting these people injure all these officers with rocks and fireworks. That's unbelievable.
I got a legal question for you, Sheriff. This is not brought up by me specifically, but my neighbors. Now, I think in Tellico Village, we got a unique situation in that our streets are privately owned. They're not taken over by the government from the builder or developer. So, in that reference, if a armed mob or demonstrators or whatever came into our village, is, in my opinion, I just want to see what yours is, if we could repel that by virtue of the fact that we're on private property.
They have to stay on 444.
No, we stay on Sequoia Drive, right off of 444.
So tell me what you mean there, Jim.
Well, I'm saying that in most places in the county, you're out on the street, you're on a public road. In Tellico Village, you're on a private road, owned by the villagers, by the DOA.
All the cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
So if there was, some kind of situation that took place out on 444 and was marching your direction, you could stop it, in my estimation, I'm asking yours, into coming into our subdivision.
I would think so. I would want you to call for our assistance, though. However.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, it's a unique situation in that the county doesn't own those roads.
Right.
We do. So, we could go out on the end of that street and block it off to protect ourselves.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. I have two questions. The first one, as we heard with the mayor, the increase in population in Tellico Village. I know at one point when we were smaller, we had a substation there for a while, and the substation was reallocated. Is there any chance of a substation coming back into the village? There's a lot of interest in that.
And I understand that. And yes, the population is they're exploding. They're still exploding. Now, I don't know now how many building permits there are going on right now, but several. That's certainly an opportunity that I would have to address with the County Commission. And obviously, you know, they're where I get my money. And years ago, when Telco Village, I don't know how long you've been here, Susan, but the county, the POA had a contract with the sheriff's office. And it was just mainly 4 officers patrolling Telco Village. The village paid for the car, and it was a car that was used 24 hours a day, passed along to those 4 officers. And
like our little police force in there?
It was kind of, yes, but it was only, that was the, no, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
And then it became, you know, more and more expensive. So I decided, hey, we just need to break that off and incorporate y'all into everything that we do. And so, you know, you're as much part of the county as you
Well,
are.
with the conversations I've had, questions I've fielded from villagers, it's more of a substation for your use to help you spread out in the community and patrol, not having our own little police unit there for us. I
Right.
see. So, okay.
It's certainly something to
Okay.
explore.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My second question goes back to the fentanyl or so much being sent in the mail that's illegal. So that would have to be a change with the post office. That means getting our legislators, congressmen, saying, let's hit the post office. We know it has to be changed, but are you aware of this? And this is an election year, so now's a good time to bring it up and say, hello. So yeah, I'll give you my business card. I'm the chairman of the Government Affairs Committee for the village, and I'd really like some points. In fact, I'm going to be meeting with Russell and Birch next week. So